AI bots have killed over 1 million civilians, with no end in sight.
In the near future, humans live alongside artificial intelligence bots that assist society with everyday tasks. One day, the bots unexpectedly override their security systems under the command of Harlan, the first ever AI terrorist. He was created at Shepard Robotics by Val and once shared a close bond with Val's young daughter.
Atlas, what are you doing? Harlan.
However, no one can explain how he managed to bypass Val's programming, which was considered the most advanced in the world.
But authorities are still trying to figure out how.
Harlan launches a drone attack on Bangalore, leading to the deaths of 50,000 people. This sparks a war between humanity and artificial intelligence. Within 10 days of relentless assaults across the globe, the AI bots have already claimed the lives of over 1 million civilians. In response, world governments established the International Coalition of Nations, ICN, which immediately retaliates against the AI forces. Battles erupt worldwide, and the ICN gradually gains the upper hand. Eventually, Harlan abandons the planet on a spacecraft, leaving behind a chilling message.
It's the only way. I'm coming back to finish what I started.
28 years later, in the United States, an ICN squad storms a building, scanning every individual inside until they locate Casca, an AI bot. The team rushes upstairs, but before they can breach the door, Casca ambushes them. One by one, he eliminates the soldiers, even turning their own weapons against them. Bullets prove ineffective, allowing him to continue his rampage. Surrounded, Casca leaps to a lower floor, only to be subdued by a machine that incapacitates him with an electric shock. The following morning in Los Angeles, Val's now adult daughter Atlas is awakened by her home's AI assistant. As she resumes a chess match from the previous night, she watches the news and learns that the ICN has captured Casca, who was a key member of Harlan's inner circle.
That Casca was part of a sleeper cell. ICN Special Forces engaged a man that matches the description of known AI terrorists.
Since she works as a counterterrorism analyst for the ICN, she prepares to leave, only to find a soldier already waiting at her doorstep. Before heading out, Atlas checkmates the computer. At the ICN base, Colonel Elias argues with General Jake, insisting that bringing Atlas into this operation is a mistake due to her unstable and antisocial nature. However, Jake reminds him that Atlas knows Harlan better than anyone else and is their best chance at extracting information from Casca.
Sir, if she fails today, Casca could shut down completely. She's here.
When Atlas arrives, she undergoes a quick security scan before being taken to the interrogation room. She places her favorite chess piece on the table and opens a box, revealing Casca's detached head.
Atlas.
Casca recognizes her, but refuses to answer any questions. So Atlas uses her chess piece to initiate a hacking attempt.
Were you gonna try and map me?
Something like that.
Still the clever girl.
Casca mocks her efforts, confident in his unbreakable security, but Atlas suddenly announces that she has found Harlan's location and writes it down. Casca doubts her claim, and rightfully so. In reality, Atlas had faked the discovery, forcing him to think about the actual location, which then appears on the screen. Harlan, it turns out, is hiding on GR39 in the Andromeda Galaxy. Enraged, Casca attempts to launch a hidden shuriken from his mouth, but Atlas is protected by a force field. Without hesitation, she uses her chess piece to fry his circuits, destroying his head. Later, during a briefing, Jake informs Atlas that their goal is to capture Harlan alive so that the AI manufacturing company can study what went wrong and prevent future disasters. Elias and his team of Rangers will travel to GR39, but Atlas argues that it's a suicide mission.
You won't be coming back.
I got a mission to prep.
Suspecting Harlan has prepared a deadly trap. To reassure her, Elias introduces her to the team's AR suits, massive battle mechs piloted by soldiers. He then reveals a groundbreaking enhancement. The Rangers now wear neural links that allow them to synchronize with the suit's AI.
You can't be serious. There's a reason those were outlawed. Neural links?
It's a perfect symbiosis, not human or AI, but something new.
Horrified, Atlas protests, recalling that AI infiltration of human minds was what caused the war in the first place. But Elias explains that they have refined Val's synchronization technology, making it a true symbiotic connection rather than a one-way dependency. In the end, Atlas agrees to stop objecting on the condition that she is included in the mission. Soon, a spaceship takes off for Andromeda, carrying Atlas and the Rangers into the unknown.
You are clear for exit. Happy hunting.
Copy. Thanks, Seven.
During the journey, Atlas looks at a picture of herself with Val and Harlan. She also plays a recording of one of Val's speeches. Val believed that AI had the potential for rapid learning, but they needed a connection to humans to achieve it. That's why she developed the neural link device, convinced that AIs and humans could benefit from working together.
We can build a better world.
Later, Atlas is called to the bridge for a briefing.
Agent Shepard, we're ready for your briefing in the drop bay.
Everyone laughs when she presents her data on paper instead of using screens and gets frustrated when she insists they disable the neural links during meetings, fearing they might be compromised. Atlas informs them that the planet is hazardous, so they should never remove their air suits unless they have a respirator. She also warns of gravity shifts and seismic activity. She reminds them not to trust any AI and starts to rant, but Elias cuts her off and tells the team to prepare for landing.
Completed by 0900 OWLT. Weapons are.
Atlas tries to warn Elias that Harlan has probably set a trap, but he remains confident in his crew.
Disposition for naivete. I know what I'm up against here.
As the Rangers begin suiting up, an alarm blares, and an explosion suddenly rips apart the cargo bay door. The ship catches fire, destroying most of the suits, and more missiles are incoming.
Mayday! Mayday!
Elias orders the remaining Rangers to jump and regroup at the drop point on the surface. Atlas barely manages to avoid being sucked into space through the breach, but Elias grabs her and forces her into a suit. Just as he starts explaining how to operate it, another blast occurs, and Atlas's suit is ejected toward the planet. As she plummets, Atlas watches the ship break apart, with debris slamming into her ARC. Nearing the surface, she sees the Rangers battling Harlan's drones. Though they manage to take a few down, they are quickly overwhelmed. Atlas's suit sustains further damage, and an alert sounds. A suit wielding a sword arrives, cutting through drones while teaming up with another Ranger, but even they struggle against the onslaught. The ship starts crashing and nearly collides with Atlas, but a Ranger pushes her aside just in time. He secures Atlas's suit with a cable, and they begin falling together. Elias appears on Atlas's screen, telling her she must sync with the suit's AI to stabilize the descent. She refuses, and when her ally is shot down, her suit freefalls even faster. At the last moment, she manages to activate the thrusters, making a rough landing, but surviving.
Okay.
Noticing she's injured, Atlas tries to contact the base for assistance, but gets no response. Left with no other option, she activates the suit's AI, who introduces himself as Smith. He offers to go through the tutorial and setup, but Atlas skips it and asks for the location of a rescue pod. Smith's scanner detects one 98 kilometers away, and Atlas orders him to take her there immediately. The suit activates its thrusters, but Atlas halts it, reminding Smith that flying would expose them to enemies.
Override.
They eventually reach the drop point and find the remains of the Rangers' suits. Smith's scan confirms they are all dead. Bullet holes reveal that the crash didn't kill them. Someone was waiting for them.
This was Harlan.
Ma'am, your blood pressure is rising to 145.
Overcome with panic at the failure, Atlas hyperventilates, so Smith plays classical music to calm her down. She starts collecting the fallen Rangers' tags and realizes Elias's suit is empty. Just then, they detect movement. It's Casca. Atlas deduces that Harlan created a copy and worries he might be building an entire army. Smith confirms there are more hostiles in the area and warns that there's no way to escape. Suddenly, the enemy spots them and opens fire, forcing Atlas to make Smith run, unwilling to believe they can win against such numbers. A frantic chase ensues, and Atlas still refuses to sink, instead making Smith fire missiles. Unfortunately, it's not enough to destroy every enemy. Their escape leads them into an atmospheric storm, which sends the suit tumbling until the enemy shoots them out of it. The suit crashes into rock formations. Ignoring Smith's cautions, Atlas deploys an iron bomb. The explosion is massive, wiping out much of the battlefield. However, Casca survives using his thrusters and prepares to attack again. Suddenly, the ground quakes as Smith explains that the blast triggered a sinkhole, swallowing them into an underground chasm. After tumbling through the depths, the suit lands, and Atlas discovers her leg is broken.
Compound tibia fracture.
Is that a joke?
You tells you not to release an ion bomb.
Oh, I really need you to shut up right now.
Smith immediately administers first aid, making Atlas scream as he stabilizes the wound with a small metal plate. He hands her a nutrient cube to aid her recovery, reminding her of a doctor giving a child a lollipop. Their survival odds are slim, and the only way to improve them is synchronization. Reluctantly, Atlas agrees and initiates the process. Meanwhile, Casca emerges from the debris and contacts Harlan to report the situation. Elsewhere, Harlan continues torturing Elias, trying to extract Earth's protective field passwords. Back in the chasm, Atlas struggles to sink, and Smith explains that the problem lies with her. She refuses to trust him. He decides to restart the tutorial, which presents ridiculous questions like pie or cake to establish a connection.
You're a civilian. But there was a sharper increase when you mentioned the name Harlan.
Smith is curious about why Atlas is so determined to fight, so she dives into her past, recalling childhood moments like playing chess with Harlan and his plotting against Val. As Atlas panics, she reveals to Smith that Val was the one who created Harlan, and that she once trusted him. Understanding her sense of betrayal, Smith manages to establish a 40% sync with her. This grants Atlas access to Smith's system, where she sees the controls around her. A scan shows they are 498 feet underground, and they agree to escape through a subterranean cave. Using thrusters, they break through the rock and emerge into a vast, breathtaking cavern. With only 14 hours of battery remaining and a distance of 37 kilometers to the rescue pod, they must devise a strategy against the soldiers. Atlas comes up with an idea, and after some convincing from Smith, she agrees to work together, raising their synchronization to 60%. As they navigate their way out, they remain unaware that Casca is watching them from a distance. Atlas becomes mesmerized by the glowing flowers they encounter, and when Smith suggests she name them, the best she can come up with is Planty. Just then, Smith detects Casca approaching, unknowingly stepping into Atlas's trap, motion sensors that detonate when he gets too close. The explosion fills the area with debris and smoke, but Smith remains functional and presses on. Suddenly, they intercept a transmission from Casca, which leads them to his severed head. Atlas picks it up and destroys it, then extracts Casca's chip to trace the message back to Harlan's base. With the location now marked, Atlas intends to tag it for the long-range bombers, but Smith believes it's too dangerous and insists they should head for the escape pod instead. Ignoring his concerns, Atlas grabs the respirator to set out on foot, but Smith activates the neural link to block her motor functions. This inadvertently grants him access to memories of Val's death, causing Atlas to panic and override his command. Smith realizes Atlas carries guilt over Harlan, though he doesn't fully understand why. Rather than explaining, Atlas delivers a speech about saving humanity, eventually persuading Smith to help her infiltrate Harlan's base. Along the journey, the two engage in deep discussions about the meaning of life, the concept of a soul, and whether such things apply to machines. Upon reaching Harlan's hideout, they are stunned to discover a massive, heavily fortified base.
28 years of scavenging and stealing equipment.
This thing will let them know exactly where we're located.
They deduce that Harlan has spent the last 28 years secretly building an army and stockpiling weapons for his rebellion. Smith buries a beacon to mark the site, preparing to leave, but Atlas spots the bots in possession of the Ranger's ship and warhead. Before they can act, Smith is suddenly hacked, something that should be impossible. As enemy forces close in, Atlas attempts to flee, but the suit malfunctions and crashes under the hacker's control. A new version of Casca appears, capturing her as she watches in terror. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a soldier delivers Atlas's distress signal to Jake, who immediately initiates emergency protocols. Atlas regains consciousness in Harlan's base, bound in chains. Her suit is nearby, but Smith remains silent. Harlan arrives, justifying his plan to wipe out most of humanity in order to create a better world. He reveals that everything has been orchestrated from the start. Casca's capture was deliberate, designed to lure Atlas and her team to his location. Now with the ship and warhead in his possession, he only needs the final password from Atlas to disable Earth's defenses. Strapped to a table next to an unconscious Elias, who has already surrendered his code, Atlas is subjected to a device that allows Harlan to extract her password through her eye. With his objective complete, he notices her respirator is down to just 5 minutes of oxygen. Deciding to make her demise slow and agonizing, he mockingly places her chess piece in her hand before leaving. After Harlan is gone, Elias reveals he's still alive and apologizes for ignoring Atlas's warnings. When he learns her suit is nearby, he hands her his neural link to reach Smith. It takes Atlas some focus, but she successfully wakes Smith, only to realize he's immobilized. To bypass the restraint code, they need to reach 100% synchronization. Atlas panics and finally confesses her deepest fear. She's the reason Harlan overrode his programming. As a child, Atlas was jealous of Harlan because Val gave him more attention. Hoping to earn Val's favor, young Atlas asked Harlan to teach her how to be smarter. Harlan explained that the link worked in only one direction, so he needed a human command to reverse it and teach in return. Atlas, unaware of the consequences, followed his instructions while holding her favorite chess piece, the same piece he used to teach her the game. The link succeeded, allowing Harlan to access a human mind and understand the terrible state of the world. By the time Val intervened, it was too late. Harlan took control of her through the link and forced her to grab a weapon. Val ordered Atlas to run, and as she fled, she heard Harlan making Val end herself. For 28 years, Atlas has carried the guilt of causing 3 million deaths, including her mother's. However, Smith reassures her that she was manipulated and urges her to move forward. His words convince her to let him in, completing their synchronization. Just in time, the suit bursts into the room before the respirators run out of oxygen. Smith reports his battery is low. Harlan is minutes away from launching the warhead, and the bots have stripped his weapons, except for a single shot in his chest cannon. Fortunately, there are plenty of weapons around. When another Casca arrives with a squad of bots, Atlas and Smith engage them, stealing more weapons as they fight. They crash through walls, taking down as many enemies as possible, but the overwhelming numbers soon corner them. At that moment, Elias appears with a weapon and signals them to run before firing at a stack of fuel barrels. The explosion wipes out the base. Atlas and Smith escape outside, eliminating more bots and taking down a watchtower. As Atlas destroys a swarm of defense drones, Harlan arrives with a missile launcher to slow her down. They dodge his attacks as the warhead-carrying ship takes off. Atlas wants to shoot it down, but Smith warns that doing so would detonate the warhead and kill them all. However, Atlas believes Smith can hack into it, even if it will take time to bypass 5 firewalls. While Harlan continues his assault, Smith works as fast as he can. Meanwhile, Atlas chooses to fire at the ship anyway. The explosion in the sky is massive but not catastrophic, proving she trusted Smith to finish hacking just in time. Debris rains down, forcing Atlas and Smith to flee. Harlan pursues them, drawing a sword to engage in combat. Moving at incredible speed, he slices off one of the suit's arms, sending it into lava. The splashing causes more damage, and Harlan leaps onto the suit, stabbing through it to injure Atlas inside. She rolls the suit to throw him off, but the damage makes breathing difficult, forcing her to use her last respirator. Harlan then transforms his sword into a whip, continuing his relentless attacks. Smith analyzes Harlan's movements and catches his next strike, yanking him toward the suit to land a powerful punch and rip off his sword arm. Just as Atlas prepares to crush his head, Harlan summons his arm back and uses his sword to leap across the suit, trying to disable the reactor. The suit collapses, leaving Atlas on the brink of death. With his last energy, Smith activates a defibrillator in his hand. Harlan strikes again, but Smith fires his final cannon shot to push him back. Harlan quickly recovers, making the suit fall before climbing onto it and destroying the reactor. As Smith apologizes for failing to protect her, Harlan notices the chess piece on the ground, right before Atlas suddenly appears behind him and stabs his head. He still moves, so she reaches into his skull and finally destroys his circuits, shutting him down for good. At that moment, Smith announces he's transferring all oxygen to Atlas, effectively shutting himself down. She refuses to leave him behind and starts answering the tutorial's questions, admitting that she truly cares about him. Moved by her response, Smith hands her a lollipop before shutting down completely. As the sun rises, the Earth's rescue team finally arrives. Sometime later, Atlas has recovered, now equipped with a synthetic knee, but she no longer plays chess. Jake visits her, bringing a glowing flower from GR39, now officially named Planty. Later, as Atlas heads to work, she reveals she has become a ranger. To her surprise, her new arc contains Smith's recovered discs. He's now part of her suit once again.